And that brings us to 10.4 on the Ross textbook, okay? So 10.4 is when I have guts in one of the root positions. So take a look at the first example. We have the verb amad, which means to stand. To stand. I don't think he gives you the meanings of these, so it might be helpful if you want to write them down. So, with no personal ending, amad should be translated as he stood. He stood. Okay? Now, where is the guttural? Is the guttural in root 1, root 2, or root 3 position? Okay. The guttural is in root 1 position. Where am I going to have problems? For the verb amad, if amad has a guttural in root 1, where am I going to look for the issue here? Which person, gender, number? Yeah, second masculine plural and second feminine plural. Everywhere else, this verb's going to be regular, okay? But if I have to add the consonantal ending tem or ten to amad to say y'all stood, I'm going to get a vocal shava under a silent shava under the dalet. Tem is added. Where's the stress going to go? All the way to the end. The heavy endings pull the stress back, which leaves this open and propertonic. Hebrew's going to reduce that to a vocal shava. So can I just leave it vocal shava? Is that okay? Nope. Vocal shavas under a guttural are not okay, right? So it becomes what? A compound shava. What type of compound shava? Well, gutturals prefer A-class vowels, right? So I have 3 possible compound shavas available to me. The one with the pathak, the one with the sigol, the one with the kametz ketuf. The one with the pathak is the most likely one to find, right? Because it's the A-class variety. So you see that's why it's amatem in your verb paradigms. If you look on page 89 under number 1, everywhere else amad is normal except for that second masculine plural, second feminine plural form. Amatem, amaten has the compound shava where a vocal shava would normally go if I didn't have a guttural there. Make sense? Okay, now if you look at the second verb he gives you here is bahar. And again, shame on him, he doesn't tell you what this verb means, so you're spending time thinking about a verb that you have no clue of its meaning. What does bahar mean? It means to choose. To choose. Let's jot down bahar here for a minute. Where is my guttural in bahar? My real guttural. Yeah, it's the second root letter. So are there any places where root 2 takes a vocal shava in the normal paradigm of pakad? Yep. 3FS and 3CP, right? That is to say, my vocalic endings cause that vocal shava to appear under root 2. And so, if I want to add a kametz hey to say she chose, root 3 is going to slide over. The hay's vowel is going to reduce to a vocal shava. And is it going to be okay for me to leave a vocal shava under a guttural like chet? Nope. What am I going to put there instead? A compound shava. And out of the 3 possibilities, the A-class one works just nicely, doesn't it? So it'll be bahara. She chose. Bahara. Bahar, he chose. Bahara, she chose. Vocal shava becomes a compound shava here. And the same with they chose would be baharu. Okay? So you see that the boxes are under those. Everywhere else, this verb is normal. Okay? It's only the places where the vocal shava is trying to creep in here. So we've seen guttural in root 1 position. We've seen a guttural in root 2 position. We have a verb now that has a guttural in root 3 position, right? and it's the verb that we get the great confession of faith from Deuteronomy chapter 6, shama, which means to what?
Hear.
To hear. Very good. So shema. Now, root 3 is where the guttural is. Here's my question for you. Is there anywhere in the cow perfect paradigm where root 3 has a vocal shava under it? No. All the shavas you see under root 3 are what kind of shavas? They are silent shavas, right? All of those. Because all of those shavas come under a consonant that thinks the consonantal suffixes are quite ugly, right? So the dalet's closing the syllable, that shava is silent. The vocalic endings, the dalet doesn't have a shava under it because the dalet is actually married to the vowel, okay? So there are no vocal shavas here. So your question might be, well, why in the world is there an entry in Ras for some weird thing happening with root 3 gutturals? Well, here it is, okay? Here it is. Shema is normal everywhere, including when I have a shava under it. Let's say I want to say something like, I heard that. Sometimes I want to scream that when you guys are talking there. The accent mark is here, shamati, shamati. I heard that. That's a silent shava. Does Hebrew require me to change that silent shava under the guttural ayin to a compound shava? Look at characteristic 2 of the gutturals. Vocal shava is a no-no. I replace it with a compound shava. Is that a vocal shava? No. So do I have to replace it with a compound shava? No. Is silent shava okay under a guttural? Yes. So, hint, hint. If you ever see a guttural with a shava under it, what kind of shava is it? It's silent. Because if it really were vocal, Hebrew wouldn't write it there. You see? Would replace it with a compound shava. So this is truly the way you say, I heard, and it's got a silent shava there under the guttural. So that's okay, right? Shamati, shamati, I heard. What if I want to say, though, woman, singular, you, woman, you heard what I said? How would I say that? Well, it would be sha. I wouldn't have to put the accent mark here. Sha-ma. Okay? So, all things being equal, this would be the way I would expect to see this. But if you look at what Ross gives you, this isn't quite what you have, is it? What do you have? I wanted to see a silent shava under the ayin because that is allowable. But what's the issue here? The issue here is that at the end of that closed syllable, I have a consonant cluster that consists of 2 consonant sounds. One is an ayin sound, which is produced where? Yeah. Remember, we don't really pronounce it like it really should be pronounced, but if we were going to have the constriction in the throat, the way this is really pronounced, it would be right? Like your throat gagging. Well, to produce the sound, you have to open your mouth, and you've got to activate the back of the mouth. But where do you pronounce the T sound? In the front. And what does your mouth have to do to pronounce the T? I've got to close the mouth and get that tongue to the back of the teeth. So these are in the opposite places, aren't they? And so what's happening here, this is just a linguistic phenomenon. What's going on is that the fact that I had to open my mouth to create that ayin sound, and then when I go to pronounce the T, this A vowel slips in. This is sort of like that phenomenon of the furtive pathak. Remember the furtive pathak? Sneaks in there as well. And since gutturals are in the back of the throat where A vowels are produced, we're going to see a little pathak slip in there. Okay? What you also notice that tells you that this is not really an A vowel that's part of the paradigm, but rather a helping sound that slips you from the ayin sound to the tav sound, notice that there's something in the tav that you would have expected to go away. What is that? That's a dagesh lene, right? Dagesh lenes are supposed to go away when there's a vowel sound before it, right? But notice that dagesh lene stays put. So that is also a signal to you that this pathak is really a sneaky pathak, that doesn't really belong there. It just kind of slips in there. Okay? So the accent now is going to be here on root 2 as well. Shama'at. Shama'at. So say that with me. Shama'at. Shama'at. All right. So there you go. That's the way to form the cow perfect, both for regular verbs like pakad and then for gutturals that have this issue with their, for the most part, with the vocal shabbat problem. Let's real quickly talk about these other things that Ross discusses. So before we do that, let's look at this handout that I mentioned a little earlier. This is my in-class practice sheet for identifying perfect suffixes. Okay? Many of these verbs come from Jonah 1, which is a book I love to read with students after they've learned their Hebrew. So here's what I want you to do. Don't look at the consonants here because you won't know what these verbs are. What I want you to be able to do is to identify the person, gender, and number of these perfect verbs. First, common singular. Third, masculine plural, and so forth. Or third, common plural. So, what's my personal ending here? Well, it's kamate. So which person, gender, number is that?
Feminine singular.
Third, feminine singular. Who did it? Yep. So we will just gloss these as she blanked, where you don't know the verb, doesn't matter. You don't have to know the verb. This is the beauty of knowing the personal endings. Even if you don't know what the verb means, you can at least specify who did it, right? So this is sort of like, the all-knowing mother. It doesn't matter what kids are doing, mom always knows who did it. What's my personal ending on the second one? Well, the personal ending is 0, which means it's which person, gender, number? Yep, 3MS. So how would I translate this? He blanked, right? Good. Next one. What's my personal ending? It's the kamate. So that's third feminine singular. Translate, she blanked, whatever that verb means. Yarad. What's my personal ending? There is none. It's third masculine singular. So who did it? Yeah, he blanked. Good. Moving along, I have Yurad Tem. What's my personal ending? Pronounce the personal ending for me. Tem. So I'm going to bracket Tem out, and then I can identify it as which person, gender, number? Second, masculine, plural. So who did this? Y'all blanked. And it's a male y'all, right? Okay, what's my personal ending here on Asitha? Yeah, it's ta. Okay, good. And that is who? Second, masculine, singular. So who did this? Yeah. It's a Georgian y'all or a you. Masculine, singular. That's right. Okay. Yada'u. How do you pronounce the personal ending here? Hold on a second. Personal ending is? Ooh. And which person, gender, number is ooh?
They.
Okay, yeah, remember, it's third common plural, not third masculine plural. And who did it? Not we. It's they. Now, I heard a we, and it might be because you are thinking of it being at the top of your list. And in English conjugation patterns, we is up there on the top right. Okay, but in Hebrew, top right is not we, it's they. It's we is on the bottom right. Okay, who had the question?
Skylar in Huntsville.
Mm-hmm.
I'm drawing a blank here. Why did the Dogesh lady disappear in the top?
Oh, yeah, good question. Good question. It should have been here, but this is an irregular verb, and we had a vowel right here. The Keurig Yod vowel caused the Dogesh lady to pop out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, good. Next, we have Higid. What's my personal ending? Nothing. So it's third, masculine, singular. Who did it? He. Good. And then I have Higadnu. What's my personal ending? Is the personal ending oo or nu? Ah, yeah, you see the silent Shiva here, right? So that's my root letter, my last root letter. So nu is the personal ending. You got to be sure you look for that. If you see an oo, always ask myself, is there an N before it? Because if there is, then the ending's not oo, they, but nu, which means we, right? And so which person gender number is nu? First, common, plural, right? So we blanked. Good. What about Higad 10? Higad 10. What's the personal ending? Pronounce it. 10. Good. You guys get a perfect 10 for this. And what's the person gender number?
This second.
Feminine, plural. So who did this? Y'all. Not she. That's y'all. It's you, but they're female. Okay? Remember, anytime you see the number 2, you got to go for you. Okay? If you don't remember the stupid little thing we used to say in our pride as kids, we're number 1. Because we are first person, isn't it? You're number 2. Because you are, in fact, second person. Okay. Yachalu. What's my personal ending? Ooh. And which personal ending is that? Third common plural. Who did this? They. Okay, good. And then chafatzta. What's my personal ending here? Ta. And ta is who? Second, masculine, singular. So who did this? You. Blank. And asitha is just a mistake. I forgot to delete it. It's already there. Okay, good. Do you see how, if all you know is your personal endings, you've actually been able to translate almost the entire thing, right? The only thing you don't know is what the meaning of the verb is. And that's just from knowing your personal endings. So learn those personal endings, please. These verbs are not all cal perfect verbs. Some of them come from the hifil stem, which we don't know yet. And some come from the PL stem, which we don't know yet. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to know which stem it is. If you know the personal endings, you know who did the action. Let's talk about how you translate the perfect tense and understand, or the perfect tense. I don't like to call this the perfect tense because what we're looking at here is not actually a tense. Because when we say tense, what do we usually mean by tense? Yeah, when we think of tense, we think of time categories, right? Past, present, or future tense. Tense has to do with time. Here is the deal with Hebrew verbs. Hebrew verbs are not based on tense as a prominent semantic category. The Hebrew verbal system is not a tense prominent system. The Hebrew verbal system is, as linguists would say, an aspect prominent system. Aspect has to do with how the action is being portrayed, whether the action is being portrayed as a complete or a whole action, or whether the action is being portrayed from within as a process or as phases of action. That's what we would call imperfective versus perfective aspect. So the perfect has what's called perfective aspect. Now, if you're learning Greek and learn something about Greek verbs, you you already know a little something about this issue. Greek is a highly aspect prominent verbal system too. So the point here being, but Greek also has more things built into it to signal tense as well, or time. Hebrew not so much. So the perfect conjugation is perfective. That is, it portrays the action as a complete or a whole act. When we think of actions as being complete or whole, it does tend to be the case that the action is past time, because you're the speaker reflecting on a whole action in the past that's already been finished. Okay? And so many times, the perfect conjugation will be translated as if it were just simple past time. Okay? So if we take a verb like pakad, let me make that a little bit bigger. If we take a verb like pakad, that's the cow perfect, third masculine singular. I could translate this as he visited, simple past time. And in many contexts, that would be perfectly fine. So that's the simple past idea. Okay, so you could translate a cow perfect as a simple past. I could also translate it as he has visited. And in English, what am I using? I'm not using the simple past. What do we call that kind of a tense? Does anybody know their English well enough to know what we call this? I could call it the present perfect. Okay? The present perfect uses a form of have in the present plus what's called the past participle. So he has visited. Okay? And I need to just, I need to think of it in terms of context. When would I use the present perfect for a cow perfect verb? I might use it in a situation where if I want to give some prominence to the idea that the action happened in the past, but at the time of my saying it, there's some present implications or relevance. All right? For example, if I said something like, I ate, as in I ate a hamburger, okay? That's just a simple past action, and it's something that I did, it's done, it's in the past. But if I come into your house and you're cooking dinner and you ask me whether I'm hungry, I might say something like, I have eaten, okay, where I use the present perfect for that. Why would I use that form? Well, because what I'm trying to tell you is that I ate before I got here, and my having eaten is still relevant now. Because if you offer me food and I say, I have eaten, what am I telling you? That I don't need food now, right? There's some ongoing relevance at the time of my mentioning this. And that's what the perfect tense tends to do. Sometimes we could even translate a perfect with something like this. He had visited. Okay? And we would call that the past perfect rather than the present perfect, because I'm using a past form of has. Okay? And I would use that when I want to say that two things happened in the past, but one happened further back in the past than the other. When the ambulance arrived, past time, Billy had broken his leg. Which one happened before the other one? The leg breaking happened first, and then the ambulance arrived, right? And so the more remote past action I could use with what's called the past perfect. And some languages describe this as pluperfect, if you know, like Spanish. Okay, so those are your past time kind of renderings for the perfect. But there's also one other situation where we could actually use the present tense in English to translate a cow perfect, or any kind of perfect. And that is in two situations. if I have stative verbs, okay, what are stative verbs? These are verbs that indicate a state rather than an action or an event. To be full, to be happy, to be heavy, to be big, okay? Those are not activities, those are states of being, and Hebrew has verbs that indicate those states of being. And so when I have a stative verb, like, let's say kavadta, you see the personal ending on kavadta is ta, right? You see that? Who's the subject here? Ta is you, masculine singular, right? So I'm going to translate this. I could translate this as you are heavy. Now I might get punched in the face if I do that, but that doesn't matter, okay? This is a stative verb, and it's in the perfect, but I could translate it as a present tense. I could also translate it as past. It doesn't have to be present tense. But if the context is present, and I'm looking at someone and I'm saying, kavata, and he's big, then that probably means you are heavy. And then I need to cover my head. All right, so present tense can be used for stative verbs using the perfect conjugation in Hebrew. And then there are also some situations where I have verbs that are not necessarily stative, but they are being used for things that are habitually true or habitually the case. Maybe a general truth. And he gives you the example here at the bottom of the section, right above 10.6, where he says, Yashavnu b'shalom. Yashavnu is a perfect verb. Yashavnu. Okay? You could translate that as we dwelt in peace, but if it's being used in a context where it's intended to state a general truth, then you could also translate that as we dwell in peace, like as a matter of course, like this is the way we do things. Hey, we're a Smurf village, and Yashavnu b'shalom. We dwell in peace. I think my students must think I'm crazy. All right, well, I guess we need to stop there. 10.6 would have been the next thing to talk about, but we are out of time. I can't believe it. All the fun has to come to an end. So, yeah, I know. All right, so we'll stop there.